Hello everyone, I'm Yushin Wang. Today I'll be teaching you the rule of chess, how to play it. So chess always starts on an 8x8 board with 64 squares and 32 pieces, 16 pieces on each side, and white always moves first. The goal of this game is to capture the enemy king, and whoever does it first wins the game. Now let's start with the basic rules of how to move each piece. So for the king, the most important piece in the game, because if you lose it, you lose the game. The king will be able to take the enemy piece and move to any square right next to it. So for example, if I have enemy queen here, my king will be able to take it. But as for any game like chess, you would not be able to take your own piece. This will be illegal. I mean, nobody likes a backstabber. And now we have the queen. The queen is a much better version of the queen. I mean, the king. It is the most powerful piece in the entire game. It can move horizontally. It can move vertically. It can move diagonally up to any amount of space the player wishes. But like most of the pieces in the game, except for knight, the queen cannot attack or move over another piece. So for example, if my queen wants to take this enemy bishop, I will not be able to because there's another piece in the way of movement. I cannot move to this square because again there's pieces between the movement. And now here we have the rook. The rook will be able to move vertically and horizontally to any amount of squares the player wishes. It is basically a worse version of the queen. Over here we have the bishop. The bishop is still just a worse version of the queen. It can only move diagonally up to any amount of spaces the player wishes. The bishop and the rook and the pawn and the queen all they cannot attack over another piece, and the pawn can only move one square, but whatever. And now over here we have we have the knight. The knight is a pretty special piece because it neglects the rule of moving or attacking across another piece. So if there's an enemy piece over here, despite being blocked in its movement, the knight will still be able to take the piece. And the knight moves in a kind of weird L shape. So it is able to take any pieces highlighted on the board right now. This knight, it will not be able to take any pieces within the movement. So for example, if I have an enemy rook over here, enemy bishop over here, I will not be able to take this specific bishop with this move because this is not a piece in my destination. And over here we have the pawn. The pawn is one of the most basic and arguably the most useless piece in the game. It can only move one square and it can only take diagonally one square toward. It cannot take backwards. This will be illegal. So come on, why is it so hard? So you cannot take backwards towards your own baseline. You only be able to take towards the enemy baseline and move towards the enemy baseline. So you will be able to take this bishop or this knight but you will not be able to take this rook or this queen. You cannot take these. These are illegal, but you'll be able to take this bishop or the knight, or you can just move forward. Oh, come on, that was a mistake. And if something is blocking the pawn's movement, you cannot take the piece in the movement because that'll be illegal. And you cannot move towards. I mean, you cannot move diagonally if there's a piece. I mean, if there's not a piece in the way. So you cannot move diagonally because there's no piece. You can take this knight. I mean, you can take this knight and just move over there. Come on, why is it so hard? And same thing applies for the black side. For the black, oh my god. Okay, there we go. For the black side, the enemy baseline will be over here. So the black can take. Come on. The black can take these two squares and move forward. But if there is like enemy pieces over here, you cannot take these two. There's some special rules to the movement though. So for example, the pawn will be able to move two squares when it has not been moved. So I can move over here because I have not moved my pawn in this game yet. I mean, move this specific pawn yet. But if I moved over here, after I moved this pawn once, I cannot try to move this pawn two square in one turn again, because that would be illegal. So I can just do this, no consequences. But after the initial move of the pawn, I will only be able to move one square. Yeah. There's another special rule. Probably you probably won't be able to use it, but if an enemy pawn moves two square, and after the movement, your pawn is right next to it sideways, you will be able to take the enemy pawn by taking it sideways. Then this enemy pawn will be dead. And you have to do it right after the enemy movement of the pawn, because after that turn, for example, I don't know, I'm just set up some fake scenario. So for example, if the enemy pawn moves here, and instead of taking it, I move my pawn over here, and enemy takes the pawn for every reason, I cannot try to take this piece because the turn has already passed. There's a French word describing the situation called impassing. No, impassant. So basically translated to English is impassing. No, not as is important. And now we will be discussing the rule of castling. So over here we have the normal game. Now let me just remove all these pieces between the rook and the king to make the explanation of the castle rule more simpler. So the king is able to castle as long as the king and the side which he's castling his rook has not been moved. So as long as the king and the rook has not moved, the king can castle. Yeah. For there's a short castle and a long castle. The short castle is obviously because the king is closer to the rook, and the king moves. I mean the rook moves less. So with the short castle, the king would move two spaces towards the rook, and the rook will instantly teleport right next to the king. And for the long castle, the king would again move two spaces to the rook, and the rook will teleport right next to the king. Simple. Now here's some special rule. You cannot castle while you're in check. Um, what chess player mean when they say in check is when your king is threatened by the enemy piece. So if you do not take action, well, whether to take the rook or block the path of attack, or just move away your king, your um yeah, your king will be dead. Oh my God, excuse me. Um, so you will not be able to castle when you are in check, obviously, and you are not able to castle when your castle passing for the king is threatened by the enemy. So, for example, let me just address this. For example, over here in the situation, I would not be able to do a long castle because my starting position of the king or the ending position or the middle position is threatened by the rook. So you see, it is threatened by the rook. It is legal. And no, if the enemy threatens this square too, even though my king wouldn't be threatened after the castle maneuver, this move will still be illegal because my king passes a square in the castle maneuver. So similarly over here, I mean the same thing over here. The king would not be able to castle because either the starting square, the middle square, and the end square, one of the square is threatened by the enemy. In this case, the end square is being threatened by the enemy. In this case, the middle square is threatened by the enemy, and in this case, the starting square is threatened by the enemy. So if any of these squares are threatened by the enemy, you cannot castle. And oh yeah, I almost forgot to mention about the pawn. Another special thing about the pawn is that after the pawn reaches the enemy baseline, so for the white it is over here, and for black it is over here. Once your pawn reaches the enemy baseline, you will be able to promote it, just change it to any piece you desire except for a king. So you can change it to a queen. I don't know. You can change it to a rook. You can change it to a bishop. You can change it to a knight. All sort of cool stuff. The pawn gets so much value just by the promotion. And oh yeah, in chess, you can get some draws. When you can only get draws when the situation is impossible for checkmate, or when the situation is impossible for the enemy to make a legal move. So, for example, over here in the situation, this is a pretty endgame. I only have a king, and the enemy also only has a king. We cannot checkmate each other. We cannot take the enemy king with any possible legal moves. This is just perpetual movement. So we would call it a draw. And another case of draw is when the enemy cannot make any legal move. So for example, over here, I have a pretty big advantage. My queen is threatening checkmate. Over here, or here, or here, next move. But because this is the enemy's turn, the enemy cannot make any of these move, and because the enemy has to move, it's a draw. Because the enemy cannot make any legal moves, because if he's move here, he just like he just oh my god, he just gonna lose his king. Come on, I'm taking. I hate this so much. He just gonna take this king and lose the game. And the last case of draw, a forced draw, is when a player no no is when a setup has occurred. I think 3 times or 4 times. I forgot the exact number. So, for example, if I'm playing white and I have no idea how to checkmate black, so I just derping around. So you know, um, you know, um, I move over here, black over here. I move over here, black moves over here. I move over here. Over 3 times, or 4 times. I think no, I, I think it's three. So if this same situation occurs 3 times, it will be a draw. Because sometimes just because the players are dumb, but generally because the situation is just better if both sides just perpetually um, move the same move, so it will be called a draw. And let me think. Yeah, that's it for all the rules that you need to know to play chess. All the rules that you ever need to know. And yeah, thank you for watching. Bye bye.